Well, you fucking did it. Congratulations, you made it to the most popular video on the channel 28 weeks later, well, 28 days later, in the House in a Heartbeat film version. Excuse me if I'm a little bit disoriented with the hair and the look and all that. It was supposed to be a design choice. I was supposed to do my hair before I did this video. Unfortunately, the problem was that I have to record another video, and by the time that I redo my hair for that video, I'm not going to be able to have the style that I really want, and I can't record again because I'm doing this later than I was supposed to do it. Anyway, I have a task, and that task is simple. Look, I made a promise. If you got In the House in a Heartbeat film version to the most popular video on this channel, I would give you a dedicated video. And the video that I had planned for quite a amount of years now is to prove the innocence of the man named Don from 28 weeks later. Shit, I'm a bit rusty. It's been about a year since I've done a style video like this. I'm even having a hard time looking at the camera. I'm looking at myself, I'm not looking at the fucking lens. But you know what, I'm gonna try. Right here, what I have here is my exhibits of evidence to prove the man Don is in fact an innocent man who is wrongfully accused of being a selfish individual by both audience members and the filmmakers alike. I have every proof of evidence. I can't even stay in frame. Every proof of evidence right now to showcase how this man doesn't deserve the hate that he gets. And doesn't deserve to be called stupid either. I've also seen people call him an idiot. He's far from an idiot. In fact, he's one of the smartest characters in the whole franchise. And I bet that tradition will continue into 28 years later, which comes out next year. So view this video as a certain kind of video that's to hype up the next year's movie. So, first line of order is Exhibit A, to prove that the man Don is innocent, and that is the opening scene. The iconic scene, everybody knows it. It's one of the greatest scenes in horror movie history. It's probably the greatest scene of all zombie media ever to exist. And so we're gonna start there with the accusations. Now, first off, the main accusation that comes into play is Don abandoning Alice. Why the fuck would he do that? Why would he abandon Alice? Why would he leave her for dead? I've heard this shit for years. I can't believe there's still people like don't understand. I understand certain people have belief systems and whatnot for their own morals, but mine's more towards the morality of objectivism. So whatever applies to the real world in a sense, and factual logic is what I try to apply by whenever I can. When it comes to emotional gratitude, well, that's a more personal opinion-based thing, but for the most part, if we're going to really go that route in terms of opinionated, Don has pretty much done everything that he possibly could in this opening scene to protect everyone there. And so the accusation that he is a selfish individual who abandoned his wife is the most bullshit thing I've ever heard, because there is not that many people that I could even think. I don't even know if I could think of anybody that would be in Don's shoes and then do the amount of things that I'm about to tell you that he did during that entire opening scene. So let's start off from the beginning, right? Don and Alice, they're having dinner, and then the knock at the door. Who could it be? I have no idea. And obviously, if you get a knock at the door of a cabin during the middle of a zombie apocalypse, you're going to be a little bit hesitant to be like, oh, let's go open the door. Because for all you know, what if that's a little zombie scratching and clawing away at the place? Who knows? But immediately they hear the voice of a kid, and the maternal instincts, paternal, one of those, the nurture instincts of Alice kick in and tries to protect and save the boy. But Don is a little bit hesitant because anybody with a logical brain in that situation would be able to immediately understand that the yelling that this boy is doing is bound to attract attention. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't save the boy, but that does mean that by saving the boy, they are leading the noisemaker, that is the boy, directly into their vicinity. And so wherever the noise has come from, all the infected is going to come to that spot and that area, which makes it very dangerous, which means they have to be very quiet. Unfortunately, at the same time that the boy is let into the house, another individual within the house goes to peek out the window to see if anybody is there, and unfortunately picked one of the worst times to do it because one of the infected was there, standing there, grabbed her and bit her, and then chaos ensued from that point onward. When she turned into an infected and Jacob was on the floor getting almost bitten, getting almost turned right then and there, who came to Jacob's rescue? Oh yeah, that's right, it was Don. Yeah, Don came in with a crowbar, killed her, saved Jacob, and Jacob goes on his merry little way. He tells all of them to go, run, get out. He literally tells them all to do that. And then the guy proceeds to stand his ground with a crowbar in hand and starts beating the infected left and right. He, from my count, killed a total of about 3 to 4 mugs with the crowbar alone during that moment, and gave all the other mugs plenty of time to escape the building, or at least, get a head start on escaping the building. Don standing his ground. Now, I don't know about you, I don't know that many cowards or paranoid individuals that would be able to stand their ground like he did with a crowbar in hand, knowing that even the slightest ounce of body fluid from any of these motherfuckers coming in the door could infect you. I don't know that many people that would be able to do that. But you know who did? Don did. Don did that. Yeah, he did that, and he killed 3 to 4 mugs. So he's a killer. He's capable of fighting. He's got that fight in him. But the second he loses his crowbar, obviously, he decides it's time to book it. You want to know why that was obvious for him to decide to book it right then and there? It's because he doesn't have a reach anymore. So now, if he's going to attack the infected, he doesn't have range to be able to distance himself from the infected to be able to strike on the infected, which makes him, now vulnerable because he doesn't have a weapon. And so, if he was to go hand to hand, that's a dumb idea. And that would pretty much get him killed right then and there. And so obviously now is the smart and intelligent decision to book it, which he does. In fact, if you want to argue that he's a narcissist as well, instead of leaving the house immediately like anyone would do in that situation, is immediately go and find the exit. What he ends up doing is he ends up hearing his wife up the stairs, which anybody with common sense would know, if you go up the stairs in a horror movie, you're pretty much trapped and you're pretty much fucked. But he hears his wife upstairs and he decides to go to his wife, proving that he does indeed care about his wife. In fact, he is willing to risk his life to go and save his wife. So what does he do? He runs upstairs, he runs to Alice, grabs Alice, and he tells her it's time to go. It's time to go. And she says, the boy, I'm trying to find him. I don't know where he is. And then she finds him in the closet. She splits herself off from Don. And as soon as she does that, timing was terrible because the infected come charging in the door. Now, you may not have seen the same thing that I saw, but in the quick little frame right here, where they charge in the room, you can clearly see that there is not just the one mug that fucking busted in. You see about 2 to 3 other mugs standing at the doorway right behind him. Which means that anybody going with the logic that, Don should have tackled the infected and saved his wife, well, guess what's waiting for him right as soon as he does that? More mugs, and then another mug, and then another mug. And guess where Alice and the boy are? They're still going to be in the exact same spot in the bedroom, because even if Don was to do something, there's no way for them to get around Don and not run directly intercepting with the infected right here. And in the moments that happen right then and there, Don is taking a second to analyze the situation. He's looking around like, okay, there's the motherfucker right there. There's a bunch of mugs at the doorway right here. He's looking at the door. He's looking at her. He's looking at the mug in front of him. And it only takes about 5 to 7 seconds for the infected mug standing between him and Alice to turn around, face him, and charge at him. Now, I don't know about you, but even if you had all the time in the world, if that motherfucker suddenly decided to turn around and face you, you're shutting that door. If you don't shut that door, you're dead. There's nothing to do. There is literally nothing Don can do, which is a point that seemingly a lot of people gloss over because they want him to be the big hero. But unfortunately, the real world isn't exactly like that. In the real world, Don had literally nothing he could do. There was nothing he could do in that situation that wouldn't have involved everyone dying. Everyone was destined to die unless he closed that door, and then he would survive. And mind you, 5 to 7 seconds. That's all it took for that mug to turn around and face him and charge him. Okay, and then Don goes out the window whilst Alice takes the kid to the next room. She manages to lock the door. Don goes out the window and he immediately lands. And so now the next thing that some people would usually say is he should go back around and get back in to get her out. He can't do that either. You want to know why? Because the second he lands on the concrete, which mind you, he fell off a roof onto this kind of ground right here. I don't know about you, but I don't think that many mugs would be able to get up immediately after hitting that kind of ground. Even in a situation like this, like holy shit, that shit is gonna hurt. He turns and he looks down the street and immediately can see mugs are charging in his direction. There is no way for him to get back inside. In fact, in the same shot, you could also see more mugs turn left going back into the house. So even if he was to go back into the house, there's already mugs going in the house. So there's really nothing he could do to get back into the house. So he has to run, and he manages to run out into the open field. And the last thing he sees is his wife, Alice, at the window, calling out his name. But he knows there's nothing he can do because the infected are literally chasing right behind him, as evident by the scene a few seconds later where you see all the mugs right behind him. And then you see mugs over the hilltop. That's a great shot, by the way. And then he makes his way all the way to the boat, yells for Jacob, which is something that, once again, I don't know about you, but not a lot of people would be very quick to be like, hey, all these fuckers are chasing behind me. Get ready. Be prepared. That's good on Don. He warned Jacob. That seems like a nice guy thing. And then he gets on the boat. Jacob slips, falls off the boat. And what does Don do? Does he do what a selfish person would do and start the boat and drive off? No. He actually goes over the boat, tries to help Jacob on, despite the fact there are mugs surrounding him everywhere. I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of selfish people that'd be able to do that. It's almost like Don isn't selfish. And the scene ends up with him surviving, the only survivor of the entire situation. And you want to know why he's the only survivor of this entire situation? Is because he's not stupid, he's intelligent. He played every smart play that somebody could possibly do in a split-second decision-making scenario, which is crazy because that was a very hard situation to survive. A lot of people that claim that they could survive this kind of outbreak would not survive that situation and would have died alongside everyone else that died that wasn't Don. That just goes to show you how good Don is at not just surviving, but also intelligence. Being able to think it out, plan out what he has to do. I mean, you even see the shot where he's analyzing the door, analyzing the infected, and thinking about what to do. Like, holy shit, that takes a lot out of somebody. I don't think you realize how much that takes out of somebody in a situation like that where it is complete panic, it is complete chaos. You need a lot of self-control over your mind in a situation like that, which Don had. So Exhibit A proves Don, from this entire opening scene, beginning to end, is not only an intelligent individual, but is also capable at surviving a situation and is not selfish by any means. He has done everything in his power to try and save and protect the people in the house, including his wife, specifically his wife, actually. So on to Exhibit B, the explanation scene. The scene that seemingly paints Don as a liar and a manipulator and is trying to paint the narrative that he was a hero in the scenario to his kids to make it seem like he couldn't do anything to save his wife. Well, let me tell you something. First of all, I'm going to prove that Don never once tried to paint himself as the hero. In fact, everything that Don says, which I have written, all of his quotes, And you can go back to watch the scene and see that I am not telling a lie. I am telling the truth. And in all of his quotes, not one time has he ever tried to manipulate the narrative to make himself sound more heroic than he actually was. The first thing that he mentions to his kids is the opening scenario, how he got there. And then he mentions how everything went down and that he eventually got trapped in the bedroom with his wife. He then states that I've seen them fighting and couldn't do anything, which immediately to most people would be like, well, that's a fucking blatant lie right there. He's seen them biting? How could he seen them biting if they couldn't do anything? Wow. Have you ever heard of something called paranoia? Because paranoia is a bitch. It makes you think and believe things that aren't actually real. In fact, there are so many people that believe ghosts are real. It's crazy. Yet it's still an alibi for a lot of people. So what if I was to, I don't know, paint the narrative my way and say, what if Don simply is just stating that he saw them biting her because he actually believed that they bit her? Because remember, the last thing Don ever saw of Alice was her at the window and her getting yanked from the window. Now, anybody who wants to put 2 and 2 together would get 4 and think, oh, they got her ass. They're biting her. They bit her. There's nothing I could do. In fact, he even says, I couldn't do anything, which is true, which if you go back to the bedroom scene, there was nothing he could do unless he wanted everyone in that house to die. He then states that I tried to go back, but she was already gone. Now, this is for what most people would say is another blatant lie, but he never specified when he tried to go back. He never said that he went back during the whole chaotic scene. For all we know, what if Don went back after everything went down, he left, and then he came back to the cottage and tried to find her? Because if you paid attention to the movie, you would know that if that scenario did happen, if Don did leave and then come back to try and find his wife, he would know that she's not there. Because you know why she's not there? It's because she's still alive. But that's not something that Don knows. For all he would know and all he would think is that Alice got infected and now she's running about as an infected. And that's why she's not in the house. Now, am I saying that that is what happened and that is what Don is implying? Not necessarily, but what my point is trying to prove is he's not trying to make himself look better than he actually was. He is simply just trying to state what he felt and how he saw things and how he remembered things in the moment. And that is another thing that a lot of people don't take into account. A lot of traumatic experiences, there are some people who genuinely don't remember all the gritty details or have simply blocked some of the gritty details out of their memory because it was too traumatic. And so him not exactly remembering how everything happened one for one in a situation that was frantic, that caused him to run around and move at lightning speed, for him to not be able to take into account of everything that's going on, that adds up. That's not something that would make him sound like a criminal. That adds up. That makes sense that he wouldn't remember all the details. He then states, I managed to get away and I was just running. I got to this military camp and I've been in a quarantine waiting for you guys. That is how the scene goes. Never once has he tried to manipulate the narrative to his kids that he is better than he seems he is. Now, he may have forgotten certain details because of the experience, or he may have misremembered some things, but he never tried to explicitly make it seem like, oh, I was a hero, give me my praises. In fact, the scene ends with him crying and his kids crying. Now, I don't know about you, but a guy who wants to take the glory for a situation like that, for trying to save his wife, but then failing, even though in reality he is selfish because he didn't try to save his wife, I don't know about you, I don't think you would be crying. I think you would be like, man, I tried to do everything I could, man. There was nothing I could do, man. I'm sorry, kids. I'm sorry. I don't know if you'd be very emotional about that. And he didn't fake his emotion either. You can tell that throughout the narrative, they have re-showcased this theme that Don was feeling guilty about what he did with Alice and what happened with Alice. He's felt guilty this whole movie. And I don't know about you, but I don't know that many narcissistic people that would feel that guilty about a situation that they never cared about to begin with. You know what I mean? If you didn't care about the situation to begin with, why would you suddenly care after the fact? It's not to say that all narcissists are evil individuals, but it is to say that if you didn't care about something before, why would you suddenly care about it now after it all happened when it didn't necessarily go the way that you wanted it to go at the time? You know what I mean? Yes, at that point, you're essentially just making yourself feel bad for no better reason than to just feel bad when you didn't feel bad in the moment. Which, I don't know. No, that's not necessarily what Don did at all. And to further elaborate on Exhibit B, we go on to the scene where Don is told that his wife is alive. His wife is alive, they got his kids, and he goes and he talks to his kids. And now he is trying to figure out, how are his kids? Are they okay? Why did they go do this shit? And immediately Tammy asks him, you said you saw her die. And Don said, I didn't say that. I didn't use those words, which is correct. If you go back to the original scene that he told his kids about what happened, he never used those words. He never said that she died. He never used those words. He is not lying. Even though he seems very guilty in the moment, because it's like, oh shit, did I say that? I don't exactly remember, which could go back to my earlier point of he's not remembering all the details of this trauma, because a good amount of trauma victims would not necessarily remember every single gritty detail if they try to block some out. You know what I mean? And that would further elaborate to my point rather than the opposite point. He even states that it's confusing, It's very hard for you to imagine, Too hard to explain. And it is hard for his kids to imagine because, for one, they're kids, and for two, they weren't there. They didn't experience the chaos that was the infected. They don't understand what the infected were really like. They don't understand the gravity of vicious and violence that the infected brought. So it's very hard for you to imagine. Yeah, that makes sense why Don would say that. And him saying that it's confusing, also elaborates to my point earlier about him not remembering all the details. He then states that I thought I saw her die, which is true because the last thing he ever saw of his wife was her getting yanked from the window of the cottage. That goes directly one-on-one with his point. Nothing he said here other than him maybe misremembering certain details or not explaining it the best way that he could have to his kids. Other than that, nothing here is making him seem like he had an ulterior motive or that he tried to hide some selfish act from his kids. Nothing. Everything that he states here would make it seem more like, oh, he's just misremembering it because of the trauma and the guilt that he felt, rather than him being like, oh, I never did that. Oh, I don't know what y'all are talking about. Despite him sounding very guilty, I know he sounds guilty, but then again, it's better to stick your ground and be like, well, that is what I thought I saw. And that is what he says. I thought I saw her die. I don't know. He doesn't sound like a malicious man to me. And now we go to Exhibit C, the infection. And I don't understand how people can get mad at this scene. Because I want you to understand, everything that happens during this scene is not Don's fault. It is the military. Because I don't know about you, but if we found somebody who has been surviving out here for months and who they know was bitten, the military, the scientists, they know she was bitten, and you're telling me you didn't post any guards? And before you say that, well, Don snuck his way into there, not exactly, because two guards walk by, and Don opens the door and enters right behind them, right after them. Now, I don't know about you, but if this was as heightened of a situation as it was, and we're supposed to be on watch duty, watching, making sure nobody's coming in. If we heard a door open behind us that we just walked from, you mean to tell me that nobody's gonna turn around and be like, hey, you can't be here? Because it's not like he opened the door 12 seconds after. He opened the door literally 2 to 3 seconds after those two soldiers walked by. And it's not like he was necessarily sneaking in because he had clearance. He had all the passes to go through all the doors. He wasn't breaking and entering into anywhere. He was just walking straight to his wife. So none of these military personnel are doing anything about making sure nobody goes near Alice. And that's somehow Don's fault? Now, the next thing that I hear people say, which is also fucking ridiculous, is that he should have known that she was infected. Let me ask you a question. How? How would he have known that she's infected? Because let me paint you a picture, right? If there was an outbreak of a virus and the outbreak resulted in a 100% death penalty, if you got infected, you were 100% declared dead, declared infected, done. If that was the case in scenario, what in your right mind would make you suddenly believe that this individual who is not infected and not dead is infected? Because if the death rate and the infection rate has been 100% accurate, then why would this individual suddenly not have the same symptoms of the other infected? That doesn't make sense. Why somebody would immediately presume that this person is infected just because. Don was never told that Alice was bitten. In fact, Don was never told that Alice could potentially be infected. No one informed that. You know why? Because the scientists were discovering that she was indeed infected the same time that Don was going to see his wife. The exact same time. There's a reason they were cutting back and forth between those shots. And you mean to tell me that Don is supposed to believe that his wife is infected when she is not showing any symptoms in a scenario where if you were infected, you were 100% guaranteed to showcase symptoms? You expect him to believe that suddenly, rationally, that she is the one. She's the one of 100,000 that just is a carrier. He's supposed to know that. How? How is he supposed to know that? There is no way for him to know that because there is no scientific evidence that have showcased that being the case until this very moment. If you didn't know something was possible up until you got first-hand experience, how would you have known if you didn't even know it was possible? You know what I mean? There's no way for Don to have just known, and there's no way for him to presume that she is because she's not showcasing symptoms of guaranteed infection, which has been 100% for the past several months that everyone he's ever seen that has gotten bitten or has gotten the blood in their face was turned. And he's just supposed to know for a fact that his wife is just the one carrier? No! You know what he's thinking? He's thinking that his wife somehow survived. And that not only did his wife somehow survive, but he left her. That's why he's feeling guilt. That's the whole point of the scene. The whole point of the scene is that he felt guilt and he's asking for forgiveness from his wife because he thinks that she somehow survived.
I'm not sure what's happening here, but it's good. That's the point. Mum's alive.
I'm so sorry. I'm scared. I shouldn't have really.
That's the point of the story. So I don't understand why anybody is upset at Don and thinks he's an idiot when the one person that you should be calling an idiot is Alice. Alice, you knew you were bitten, and you mean to tell me that you don't tell your husband that you're infected? That you got bit while he's going in for a kiss? Yeah. Alice wanted to die. I'm sorry, Alice wanted to die. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. She wanted to die. She did. There's no way you wouldn't. Listen, if I got bit, even if I didn't turn, my presumption is I might have been infected. I didn't turn, but I'm bit. And by that logic, I'm infected. Why would I let my lover come up to me and kiss me and not say anything and not do anything? I know you're strapped. I know you're strapped down. You can't really move. You can't do nothing. But you were talking just fine. You were looking just fine. When he turned, when he was starting to turn and he was starting to transform, you were moving just fine. Military, lack of security, and the security, by the way, is trash because Don fucks them all up. When Don should have been shot dead the second anybody saw him in their line of sight. How Don infected all the soldiers that were surrounding the area, and you want to blame that on Don? You want to blame that on Don when he is the one infected that survived a nuclear blast? You want to blame that guy who has had the willpower even after he's transformed to survive? Okay, sure. Whatever fantasy you want to believe in. I'm living in the real world. And in the real world, Donna is a selfless, very caring, very loving, and very intelligent individual that did everything that he could to try and survive and that did everything that he could to try and protect the people that he loved. And I know what you're going to say. Well, didn't Don also let his kids go out? No, he didn't. His kids snuck out because they're little brats. You know what this little boy said to his father after Don was like, you know, we should all be grateful that your mother is alive? This little brat right here, you know what he said? I want to see her!
Mum's alive.
I want to see her!
Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. This was for the 28 Days Weeks Later fans. You did it. You made the most popular video on the channel. I appreciate you. I thank you. And I'm glad that that is what is going to remain and stay for when I leave. This was fun. You know, I'm glad I got to do this one more time before I hit the road, go off into the sunset. I'm very thankful for you all. I hate the fact that my hair is curly. I really wish it looked better, but it is what it is. As a matter of fact, oh man, I miss saying this. Let's face the facts. I'm here to give you a reality check, and if you can't handle that, well, I'll beat you with a baseball bat, best believe. Arrivederci, you bitch ass motherfuckers.
Bye.
See